Fine, fine. And I get excited as well to see people from all around the globe checking in at all hours of the evening too. So we'll try to keep you awake with some exciting content and hopefully will benefit you as early as tomorrow. So let's just jump into our content. I'm coming at this from a little different angle this time. We talk about why products fail and how to fix it. I've been studying a bit, like what causes product failure, and products can fail throughout the entire commercialization process, right up front, in development, post development, and uh, when we define the innovation process, we're talking about the very front end of innovation, before like everything before development. And when we think about the perfect output of the innovation process, it would be a product concept that you know with a high degree of certainty is going to win before you release it into development. That would be the ideal output. And it occurs to me like this is when the big failure occurs. Companies are great at creating products. They create products all the time. The development processes aren't necessarily broken. The problem is they're not developing the right products or the winning products all the time. So really the process breaks down right here at the end of the innovation process where the right concept isn't going into development and they're not creating the right products. And of course, all that time and money is spent, wasted, and they don't realize the product's not going to succeed until it's too late, until they've already made the investment. That's exceptionally wasteful, right? So I started wondering, why do products that are destined to fail enter the product development process to begin with? How do they get in there? How are all these concepts funded for development? And then funding is withdrawn because it's the wrong product and so on. So I started looking through a lot of the literature, and I just saw a recurring theme as to why the wrong products go into development. And if I could net it down to really a couple of things. So a lot of the reasons related to, hey, it just doesn't meet a customer need. That's why the product failed. So companies are conceptualizing products that don't address unmet needs. They're products that people don't want, except they don't know they don't want them until much later, right? So they start developing them and find out later it was not the right product. Now, the second reason is even if it's the right product, it's hard to get the entire team to agree that it's the right product, to get sales, marketing, development, R&D, all behind a winning product vision is extremely hard to do. They tend to operate in silos. They tend to uh, have their own opinions as to what products are going to win and how to succeed. And going through that battle is really difficult. So if I could summarize this, for all the reasons that people claim the wrong products go into development, it, it really happens when they struggle uh, to align the team in the right direction and the same direction. So this is an important part, right? You got to be heading in the right direction. You got to be satisfying unmet needs. You have to be getting the job done better than competing solutions. And then you have to agree that it's the right direction and you're all heading and paddling in the same uh, direction. So I laid this out on the matrix, and I'm going to have a question for you right after this because I was curious. When we start thinking about same direction, right direction, certain things can happen. I've seen a lot of situations where sales is going off in one direction, marketing has another view, development has another view of what the product should be, but they're all wrong, right? So they're heading in different directions, and they're heading in the wrong direction. The siloed kind of thinking is really difficult to overcome, and it's really hard to create winning products in that kind of environment. Then I see situations, I call this misguided. The team's unified in its position. So they're all heading in the same direction, but unfortunately, they're rowing right off the waterfall, right? They're going off the cliff. So they're not heading in the right direction, even though they're efficiently moving down the wrong path. I also see quite frequently where uh, someone has the right direction, but they can't convince others. Like marketing may have come up with the right product concept or development, but they can't convince the others that it's the right way to go. And they battle, they're misaligned, they don't share the common vision. And of course, the ideal situation is pure alignment, right? Where The team is unified in pursuing high value customer goals. This is really what customer centricity is all about. I think that's a good definition when the entire team is going in the right direction, creating value for customers, and they're going in the same direction and not handling and heading off in different parts. So let me put this in a question format here. So I was very curious if you would take this poll. Um, which situation best describes your product team's direction the last time it created a failed product? So think about the last time you worked on a failed product. What situation were you in? Was it everyone was in the wrong direction? Was it siloed? Was it misguided? Was it misaligned? Were you customer centric, but it still failed? I'd be curious to see as well. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to participate here. Got 45, 50% of you participating. Yeah, again, just think that last situation you were in. What kind of situation was it? Siloed, misguided, misaligned, or customer centric? John, I think we can end the poll. We've got about 55% participants. And I think we're seeing the results, right? So we see siloed at 23%, misguided at 37, roughly almost a third, but 7% who are customer centric and still failing. But you see the failure rate in the customer centric box is a lot lower. Interesting. I've been thinking about this for a while. And thanks for participating in that and give me that information. So let's go back and talk about why this happens. This misalignment, this sense of being misguided, sense of heading in the wrong direction. What often happens is companies uh, they they have a concept in mind, right? But it's not fleshed out. They don't know all the customers' needs yet. So they put the product into development. It starts getting prototyped, put in front of customers, validated or not. They go back and iterate on the product concept. It's a very iterative process where you're learning about the needs as you're developing the product. This is a very inefficient way to uh, become customer centric and head in the same direction, the right direction. You're admittedly starting off in the wrong direction, and you try to figure out if we can get in the right direction and if we can align everyone with that thinking. Extremely hard to do. This is what happens when you intertwine the development process with the innovation process. So we want to avoid that. And going to a needs first approach to innovation certainly makes far more sense. If we can align on what who the customer is, what their needs are, which needs are unmet, and if there's segments of people with different unmet needs, we can then devise solutions that will address those unmet needs. That's more of a customer centric approach to innovation. And I noticed that 8% still fail when they're attempting to do that. So why does this happen? Why is it hard to uh, be successful even when you're using the best approaches? Well, what we find is that gaining alignment is extremely difficult because people don't agree on the very basics of what the market is. In fact, we find 71% of product team members say there isn't agreement on how to best define the market they serve. Is it around a vertical, the product itself, a technology, a geography, or something different? We also know that 87% of product team members say there isn't agreement on how to best define a customer need. Is it an exciter, a delighter, a pain, a gain, a specification, a requirement, a value driver? How should we define what a need is? We're all trying to satisfy customer needs. We're trying to be customer centric, but we're misaligned on on these basic definitions. 85% of product team members say they can't agree on how to best prioritize customer needs. Should it be left to the engineering team, marketing team? Should customers do it? Should it be quantified? We also know that 76% of product team members say they can't agree on how to best segment markets. Should it be done around demographics, psychographics, something entirely different? Well, if we can't agree on these basics, it's really hard to head in the right direction and head in the same direction. And that's why fixing these becomes so critical. What companies are doing often is cobbling together incompatible methods that are really grounded in different paradigms altogether. They don't work together. They were never intended to work together. They only handle part of the innovation process. And you can think about this and add to the list here as well. If you want to type in the chat, that would be nice. What is your innovation process? How would you describe it? Which of these tools do you use? Do you cobble them together? Do you create your own innovation process from choosing from these different pieces? Well, what we know is to be great at innovation, you have to have a great innovation process, just like any other business process. If you want to be great at it, the process has to excel and produce the right output. And of course, as we said here, the right output is hard to get. And I'll explain it again in a second. What we mean by a great innovation process is one that actually works, right? It has a high success rate. It's predictable. It points the team in the right direction so they know they're doing the right thing. They know they're creating the most value for the customer. We also need a process that aligns the team around value creation so that they're all heading in the same direction. They believe that they that these are the top unmet needs and they're correct and they're taking the right action every step of the way. We need a process that provides teams with the unifying language of innovation so we can all agree on what a market is, what a need is, and what a segment is, and so on. And as I said before, most importantly, you need a process that's going to allow you to conceptualize solutions that you know with a high degree of certainty are going to win in the market before you even start developing them. This is when the innovation process breaks down. It's on this handoff between the front end of innovation and development. Only winning products should enter development, which means we have to start thinking about this different. We have to be able to prove that the product is going to win before development begins. Well, this is going to require a little different thinking, right? So, how do we get our teams head in the right direction and the same direction? And that's what the rest of the presentation is going to be about. So, it requires, first off, a different mindset. Um, we know that people don't want a quarter-inch drill; they want the quarter-inch hole, right? So, we have a choice. We can see the world of innovation through the lens of the drill maker, or we can look at the world of innovation through the lens of the hole maker. We choose the hole maker, right? They're the ones who are buying a product to get a job done, right? What we're trying to do here is make the job the unit of analysis. That's what we're going to study. We're not trying to create a better drill. We're trying to create a better method to create a quarter-inch hole, right? So we can study this job as a process and break it down into its component parts. Jobs to be done, I like to think of it more as a perspective, really. It's a lens that you look through that allows you to see markets differently and needs differently and segments differently. And it allows you to put together an end-to-end innovation process that's purely and truly customer centric. When we look through this lens, the first thing we notice is why people buy products, which is, as I said, to get a job done. And a job can really be anything that a group of people are trying to accomplish. It could be something they're trying to move towards, something they're trying to avoid, something they're trying to resolve. Anything, like I said, a group of people want to achieve. What we know from our theory is that if people are buying products to get a job done, the products that win in the marketplace are those that get the job done significantly better than the other solutions, which means we have to create, if we want to win the market, we have to create the product that helps people get their jobs done better. So that means we need to study that job, break it down into its component parts, and figure out where they're struggling so we can create solutions that get the job done a lot better. And that's what the outcome-driven innovation process is all about. I like thinking about it as a strategy and innovation process, and it's conceived through jobs within a lens. What makes it unique is it aligns the actions of the product team around the metrics that customers use to measure success when getting a job done. It's the closest to customer centricity as you can get. You tie the actions of sales and marketing development directly to the metrics that your customers are using to measure success when getting a job done. And by doing that, you can be far more certain that the actions you're taking are going to create customer value. So here's how the process works. It begins by defining the market. We're going to define the market, though, around the job to be done. Then we're going to uncover the customer's needs. Needs are going to be the metrics that people use to measure success when they get that job done. Next, we're going to quantify which of the outcomes are met so we know which ones are most underserved, which ones are the most important but not well satisfied. Then we're going to segment the market around the unmet needs to see if there are groups of people that have different unmet needs. And with this insight, we can start planning out our strategy. We can figure out what segment we want to go after, what strategy we should pursue, what unmet needs we should target, what value proposition we should strive for. And that gets us to our destination. We need to do all this before development begins. I like thinking about it like this. ODI is the innovation process. Development process may have Scrum, Agile techniques. I'm often asked the question, how do these fit together? Well, the way I like thinking about it is ODI makes Agile more agile because you're not iterating on what the product does as you're creating the product. You already know what it does. You're just trying to design it so it can do it in the best manner possible, satisfy the customer's needs as they go through the journey of using the product. We see other techniques that fit in here as well. You can see they cross over. Some Lean Startup does as well. Lean Startup, you're asked to hypothesize the product, the customer, and the needs all up front, so making it very difficult to solve that equation. ODI breaks this down. So you solve it for the market first, needs second, the idea third, as I'll show you. The benefit of doing this is your chances of success go up dramatically. I like thinking about it like this. What are the chances that you are randomly going to come up with a product that addresses the top 15 unmet needs in the market if you don't know what they are? Slim to none, right? But what are the chances of you solving for them if you know the top 15 unmet needs in the market and you agree as a team that this is where the focus needs to be? Well, your chances are going to go up dramatically because now your creativity is focused on what really matters to customers. You're not guessing at it. You already know that if you can solve for these outcomes, that you'll be creating more value, getting the job done better. This process has been well proven out over the years, been through 1,500 different engagements across all different industries. So I'm pretty confident that this will apply to you as well. So let's get into how the process works. We'll start with market definition. What I'd like you to do here is, again, in the chat, type in, how do you define a market? Is it around technology, a product, a persona, a use case, or something else entirely different? I don't know if anyone's typing it. I don't see anything, but this is some of the many ways use cases, personas and use case, types of people with a need, opportunities, technology. Yeah, so many of what we were showing here, the vertical. Thank you for that. What we're going to do is we're going to look at markets a little different. Through a company lens to define around products and verticals and use cases, but we know that people buy products to get a job done. So why don't we define the market as the group of people and the job they're trying to get done? So this makes perfect sense. Now we know who we're targeting, who our customer is, and what they're trying to accomplish. And our goal is going to be to help them accomplish that job faster, more predictably, with a better result than they can currently. So each of these are different markets, parents who are trying to pass on life lessons to children. It's a group of people trying to get a job done. You see interventional cardiologists using angioplasty balloons and stents to restore blood flow in an artery. That's the job to be done. It's not the angioplasty balloon market. It's the market of restoring blood flow to an artery. We have tradesmen cutting wood in a straight line, or legal teams discovering information that would support a case, or art guests in the case of Disney, trying to experience an alternative reality. Or many of you here, innovation leaders who are trying to build an innovation capability across the organization. These are all different jobs that people are trying to get done. And one thing you'll notice about these job statements is that they're all stated in a very similar way. It's a process format. It begins with a verb. You're trying to accomplish something. And we state what it is you're trying to accomplish in a context. Remove an anatomical structure. Pass on life lessons to children. What this has in common is a process flow that you can break down and and study and talk to customers about their measures of success from getting the job done. So we're defining a market in such a way that makes it this stable focal point for value creation. As as products come and go, the underlying job stays the same for time. So if you're focused on the job, you're safe. Your vision is safe for years, right? If you define your market around the technology or the product, when the product's gone, the market's gone, or so it appears, right? But the underlying job is still there. But defining a market in a way that makes it customer centric, independent of any solutions, independent of the way a company may organize around its products or its portfolios. And it's a unit of analysis that allows for a very deep understanding of customer needs, as we'll show here in just a minute. What we're doing here is we're making the job to be done the unit of analysis. What that means is that's what we're studying. When we go to customers, we're not asking customers what they want. We're not talking about solutions. We're talking about the job they're trying to execute, right? To get there, we start by creating what we call a job map. We have an article in HBR back in 2008 that you can download that goes into this in more detail. But uh, we discovered after doing hundreds of projects that there's a flow to a job. This is generally a definition step up front. Then you have to gather the inputs and organize them, confirm everything's all set, all before you execute the job. And once you're executing, there's generally a monitor phase, and you modify potentially and then conclude. Now, as we go through this, and I can apply this to the job of listening to music, again, assess the situation, gather the music, put it in order, confirm, execute, monitor, make modifications, conclude. Now, what's interesting about this is that this is not a process map in solution space. It's not laying out what people are doing. It's laying out what are they trying to do in problem space, independent of solutions. So as you go through this, you can see where they're trying to accomplish, and you can begin to assess where they might be underserved. What's interesting is that products come along over time to get more and more of the job done, and they take over the market. So, for example, we saw MP3s come along, and CDs went away because they got the job done a lot better. Then we see streaming services come along, get the job done a lot better yet, overtaking MP3s, right? And we see this in all markets. People want products that will get the entire job done on a single platform. That's ideal. And in order to create that product, you have to know what that entire job is. You have to think through it from their perspective. So knowing what the entire job is aligns the team on this long-term focal point for value creation. And this is really the first step. We talk about right direction, same direction. This is the first step. If you're focusing on the customer's job, that is the right direction. That's what they're trying to achieve. That's why your products exist. And if we can get everyone to agree that that is the group of people, the job to be done, everyone's focused in the same direction. That's how it begins. Then we can move on to understanding customers' needs. Here again, um, you may want to type in the chat as well. I'd be curious to see this. How do you define a customer need? I've heard all these different words used over the years and many more, but pains and gains and benefits, expectations, table stakes, value drivers, requirements, demands, exciters, delighters. Um, what are some of the other ways that you define customer needs? What are the terms that you use? How do you describe them? And if we could put that into the chat, that'd be helpful. Pain points is a good one. Comfort. What does the job require? Call them options, solutions. Interesting. VOC and pain points, stress relief, struggles, risk management, outcomes. I like that word. Ambitions. Very good. John, we got to save these so I can add them to the list. Dreams. Yeah, the dreams. That's a good one. Budgets. Excellent. Well, thanks for that. Again, I appreciate it. Well, let's talk about the best way to define customer needs. So a company lends their benefits and specifications and requirements and dreams, but we're going to define them a little differently through a job done lens. We're going to say, since people buy products to get a job done, why don't we define needs as the outcomes that they want to achieve when getting the job done? And you go through this day in and day out as you use in every product. Things happen. You may be preparing a meal and you go, man, I overcooked that meal. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to minimize the likelihood of overcooking the meal. I also want to minimize the likelihood of undercooking it. And I want to make sure I don't cook it unevenly. And I want to make sure it's in the right proportions, the right portions, I should say, as I serve it. There's dozens of these metrics that you use, often subconsciously, but they're there to judge success when getting a job done. This is what we're going after, right? We're going to go after the job to be done as the market, the job steps as the job map, and then how do they measure success on each step of the way? This is the hierarchy of needs. Now, in addition to what I'm showing here, there's also emotional jobs, social jobs that can be added to this to add a little more complexity, but I chose to leave it off this slide here. Let's look at an example. This is surgeons, group of people trying to get a job done, remove an anatomical structure surgically. So here again, you can see steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Terminate the blood supply to the target structure, mobilize the target structure for unexpected attachments. It's again statements of what they're trying to do, right? It's not what they're doing in solution space, it's what they're trying to do in problem space, independent of any solution. There may be hundreds of different ways that surgeons attempt to remove an anatomical structure, but they're all trying to do the same thing. And that's what we have here, this list of statements. And take a look at like number 25, for example. Minimize the time it takes to locate the vessels that are feeding the target structure. Right? A very specific instruction coming from the surgeon saying, this is how I measure success. I need to locate the vessel that's feeding the structure. I need to isolate the blood vessels that feed the structure. Then I want to minimize the time it takes to transect all the vessels that are feeding that structure. I want to minimize the likelihood that bleeding occurs when terminating the blood supply. I want to minimize the likelihood of compromising a sample of the target structure that's intended for analysis. And very specific statements that they think about as they're getting the job done. They're all describing how to get the job done better. When we think about better, we define better as faster, more predictably, and with a great result, no defects. And all these statements are designed to pinpoint exactly where in the process, where in the job, customers want to get the job done better. So you may also notice that these statements are structured with a syntax that's very consistent from statement to statement because we know that having different structures to the statement causes people to rate them differently for importance and satisfaction. We need consistency of what a need statement is so we can prioritize it, so we can use it for ideation, so we can build a value proposition around it. And that's what we've worked on over the years is to create these statements in such a manner that they are the best input for the innovation process from the time they are extracted from the customer until the time they're used through ideation to solve the customer's biggest struggles and challenges. So what we've done here is we're defining needs in such a way that makes them instructions that inform innovators how to get the job done better. They're measurable, they're actionable, they're stable over time because the job and the job steps are stable over time. Again, it's not stating what they're doing in solution space, it's stating what they're trying to accomplish in problem space. They're discoverable. Customers can articulate these. They're knowable. They're not latent needs in the sense that Customers didn't know they wanted a microwave. Well, a microwave's a solution, right? It's not a need. They knew they were trying to minimize the likelihood of overcooking their meal and the other outcomes associated with preparing a meal. So here's the next step in alignment. So now we have a team that can agree that they're heading in the right direction because they're going to solve for these 100 plus statements. This is where they're going to focus to get the job done better for customers. Right? The right direction, indeed. This is what the customer is saying, how they measure value. It's their customer value metrics. And in the same direction will allow the organization to uh, become customer centric. That allows us to go to the next step. We know who the customer is, we know what their needs are. Now we want to know which of those needs are unmet, to what degree. When we think about unmet needs in solution space, they're often features and exciters and delighters that are missing from the solution. We're going to come at it from a different angle. We're saying unmet needs are defined as the outcomes that people struggle to achieve. So if there's somewhere in the process, like minimize the likelihood of damaging blood vessels along the pathway to the structure, if that's an unmet need, it would have a very high importance score and a low satisfaction score. We figure this out using surveys that go to hundreds of people generally, and we ask them to tell us how important each outcome is and how well satisfied they are given the solutions that they're using today. So they may tell us, for example, 81% may say this outcome is very or extremely important, yet only 30% say it's very or extremely satisfying. Well, if that's the case, we're going to say that that's an unmet need with the opportunity score that's calculated with that algorithm that you see up above there. And we can begin to plot out all the need statements that we collected data on. And we can pretty quickly see where the market's underserved. This is where people are struggling to get the job done better. We know precisely along what dimensions. We know where to focus to create value. We know by focusing on these that we're in the right direction. If we can get everyone to agree on this, we're in the same direction. This is how we become customer centric. We also know from this chart where the market's overserved, where people struggle, where people aren't struggling and maybe paying too much along some dimension that really is of little value to them. And if you think about innovation as finding a solution that gets the job done better and more cheaply, well, this is where you get your inputs from. Here's where you focus to get the job done better. Here's where you focus to get it done more cheaply. So here we're defining unmet needs in such a way that makes them quantifiable, knowable, defensible, backed by data. So you don't have to operate in silos, right? We can all agree that customers are saying this is what's most important and least satisfied. Let's go with what the customers are telling us instead of us trying to second guess that. Becomes transparent, becomes actionable inputs that can flow into other business activities like ideation, other downstream workflows. Here's an example here. So I took this from a study that we did with J&J at the Con Group years back. You can see what it says here. It grounded different players within the organization and made our views consistent, same direction. And it found unmet needs, which were the right direction. It gave us clear targets for innovation, which put us in the right direction, the same direction. That's how I like thinking about this and simplifying the approach. Say, that's what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to make sure everyone's in the right direction, the same direction, and coming up with product concepts that they know will win in the market before they start developing it, not years later. So here we are. We're aligning the organization around which customer outcomes are unmet and to what degree. Yeah, certainly the right direction. Here's the top 15 unmet needs in the market. We can all agree on that. We can focus on creating more value. Now, there's one step in between this and our strategy step where we answered the long-time marketing question. Are there segments of people with different unmet needs? And what we found over the years is that in nearly every market, there are segments of people with different unmet needs. But we're going to define segments a little differently. They're not going to be personas or use cases or people with different demographics or attitudes or behaviors. We're going to call a segment a group of people that have a different set of unmet needs. The thinking behind this is traditional segmentations are really proxies for the real thing. We know that customers don't agree on which needs are unmet, right? But we conditioned to use demographics, psychographics, attitudes, behaviors, again, proxies for the real things. Ideally, you'd love to segment around unmet needs, but most companies can't do that because they don't agree on what a need is or what the needs are or which needs are unmet. But yet, that's the best way to go about it. So let's stop segmenting around the proxy for unmet needs, just segment around the unmet needs. So we may find, for example, that a third of our population thinks outcomes 10, 20, and 30 are really important, fully satisfied. They go into a segment. Another group may think outcomes 40, 50, and 60 are really important and unsatisfied. They go into another segment. And you can build out your segmentation scheme. They are quite literally groups of people with different unmet needs. And then once we segment the market, then we can look at the profiling data to figure out who's in the segment, what's causing them to have unmet needs, uh, what situation are they finding themselves in that's making this happen. And we can learn a lot about these different segments, and we can potentially create different products and services to address the needs of people in different segments, which is all marketing 101, right? So we're not saying anything new here. It's just that we're going to define the segments around the unmet needs themselves so that they're not phantom segments. They're true segments that exist. Here's a case here with dentists who are trying to restore a tooth, fill a cavity. And you can see as they went through the process, in 19% of the cases, they were overserved. 24% on the right, they were underserved. 57% of the time, they were a little underserved. You can see a few unmet needs there. Well, that's because in 19% of the cases, they were dealing with patients that had healthy gums and required just a small filling. In that case, the current products were overserving the market. On the other side of the equation, they were dealing with patients that had unhealthy gums and required a large filling. And in this case, bleeding would occur, visualization would become more difficult, it's harder to keep the area dry, becomes more difficult to contour bigger fillings in those conditions. So there's a lot of unmet needs in that situation. Now, same job, different situations are causing different sets of unmet needs to occur. The impact there is, what are you going to do for strategy? So here, the company decided to pursue a sustaining strategy for 57% of the market. It improved its products along these few dimensions along the edge here to get the job done a little bit better and maintain its price point. It took the previous product set and cost reduced it along certain dimensions. Whoops. And then it invested in a new platform level solution that got the job done better in this most difficult situation. So if you want to get more market share, you're not going to get it by having one solution because the market isn't homogeneous, right? You need to see a big picture of what percent of the market falls into each category. Every market has its own footprint. We've created about 1,500 of these slides over the years. They all look very different, but they all tell a story of where you need to invest, how you need to invest to be more successful, especially when you're trying to enter a market. You generally want to enter a market uh, looking for a differentiated strategy where you're finding some group of underserved people that are trying to get the job done better and willing to pay more. So we're discovering segments in such a way that makes them valid and distinct, actionable, reachable, defensible, and hidden from competitors who are just continuing to segment around demographics and psychographics. Again, more alignment. You're heading in the right direction. You're heading in the same direction. It's increasing your chances of success. Next, we come up with a strategy. The first thing we want to pick here is, what segments do we want to go after? And what outcomes do we want to focus on each of those segments? We generally use a chart that looks something like this to make that decision. This chart here lays out the most efficient path to growth. In other words, it's laying out which outcomes are most underserved across the greatest or the largest customer population. And what we're looking for here first are these high leverage opportunities. Are there any needs that are unmet across 100% of the population? Well, if there are, you can address those needs and have an impact on the entire market. It's a great way to go after market share. You may find that there's a couple of segments that share an unmet need. You may find that there's unmet needs only in one segment. And from this information, you can build out what your strategy might be. And if you create software solutions where there's only one product, you might approach it one way. If you create hardware products where you can have literally different products for different segments, you might approach it another way. But in either case, you're taking those opportunities and you're trying to figure out how to address them. Maybe you already address them and you can better position the products you already have. Maybe there's 10 or so unmet needs that you can address to improve your existing products and services. Maybe there's a gap in the job map, a step that you're not addressing today that you can fill with a new or different product or solution or service. And maybe there's outcomes that you can't figure out how to satisfy that you need to invest in through R&D or M&A. But the goal over time is to satisfy the unmet needs in the marketplace so that you can help customers get the job done perfectly. And once you know what those needs are, it's hard for competitors to catch up to you. And when we worked with Kroll On Track, we discovered the top 65 unmet needs, a lot in the market, and they just went, year one, let's go after the first 20. Year two, pick up 5 more. Year three, pick up 5 more. They were always on the most efficient path to growth. It took their competitors 15 years to catch up to them. To do this too, you can conceptualize solutions that you know will win in the market because you can look at your existing products and the current level of satisfaction. You have that from the surveys. You can get competitive data. You can also test different concepts to see how well they're satisfying those unmet needs and build out the final concept, one that you know is getting the job done significantly better. What I like about this as well, it's measurable. We can measure the levels of satisfaction as we're creating new solutions, watching ourselves get the job done better over time. So now we have the organization aligned, same direction, the right direction. And we can conceptualize solutions with a high degree of certainty you're going to win in the market before you even start developing them. Like Bosch did. Like Bosch knew that this circular saw would win because it had this set of features which addressed this set of outcomes, which were the top unmet outcomes in a segment that was underserved that it decided to target after studying the entire job that tradesmen were trying to get done. The Kroll On Track team, in the third attempt, after failing twice on their own, used ODI. They knew this concept was going to win because it had a set of features that addressed this set of outcomes that were the most underserved outcomes in a segment of the market that they studied as they broke down the entire job the customer was trying to get done. We have a software solution as well with Cox Automotive. They knew this product would win. It addressed a set of needs that were highly underserved in a segment of the population after studying the entire job the customer's trying to get done. So that's how it works. That's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to bring science to the front end of innovation. And I like this quote here. Clive Meanwell talks about this. We worked with this team for a number of years before they sold out to Novartis at a 41% premium. When asked what he felt was the biggest benefit of ODI, it was more along the lines of setting the right direction, the same direction. It brought competence, transparency, alignment, and trust to teams who used to operating in silos. And many of you who earlier on said, you're operating in silos when you fail, will resonate with that. Comes down to this. Companies win at innovation when they move in the right direction, they move in the same direction. And our techniques are designed to make that happen. What we suggest that companies do is they execute the outcome-driven innovation process to get all the data that they need to head in the right direction. And generally, what we suggest as well is to train and align the project team along the way with usually 5 1-hour workshops to get on board with the approach, the data, how it's collected, why it's collected that way, what it's going to mean to them, and how to use it at the back end. So they're heading in the same direction. And then we can build out the strategy together, lay out the new uh, feature set or a new product concept, or lay out the value proposition for um, current products or products in the pipeline. All of this comes together, but it's done the same way with that thought process in mind, getting people in the right direction, the same direction. John, with that, I think we can turn it back over. There's some books here. The one on the right is free. If you go to jobsforthembook.com, you can get the audio book or free ebook. And I think, John, you mentioned earlier, people could contact me at ulwick@strategy.com as well, and
That's right.
take their journey to the
That's
next
right.
level.
Excellent. What a masterclass, Tony. This was maybe the most thorough presentation you've given in quite some time. This one is quite thorough. Definitely a masterclass for everyone. Thank you for everyone who participated and tuned in. As Tony mentioned, if you're interested in training your teams on how to do this, or if you we've been helping teams do this for over 30 plus years, reach out to Tony directly at allwick@strategy.com. That is his email. Just don't put him on a bunch of distros and spam him. But now we do have a few moments for some Q&A. If you would like, just as a reminder, I'll be sharing the recorded video as well as the presentation after the event, so you all have that for your reference. And then now let's jump into some Q&A. If you have some questions, now is the time to drop it in either the chat or the Q&A button. Q&A button makes it a little bit easier to organize. Tony, right off the bat, we have a question. This one came in a little bit ago from Matthews Ribeiro. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly, Matthews. How to deal with products that is the desire of the board of directors and not the customers? Are there ways to convince the board that we need to follow a process?
Yeah. Well, see, that's the whole problem, right? When when the team can't provide the data that shows something different, then it's up to the smartest person in the room, right? And the board's going to say, if you can't figure out what products to go create, we'll create them. I think the answer is you you can figure out what products to go create, but you got to go do it, right? Um, mo Most board members, aren't engineers, scientists that could uh, randomly come up with solutions that are going to address the top 15 unmet needs in the market. It takes process, right? Even if the smartest guy in the room had the right product concept, going through and doing the exercises and proving that it will work would get everyone in the same direction. So what I often find is when the boards or executives are dictating what products to create, people don't buy off on it, right? So it might be the right direction. It's down in that lower right, right? Maybe someone's in the right direction, but nobody believes it because there's no data. It's someone's opinion, and everyone has an opinion, right? So we got to get over that stage and say, hey, you need something that's defensible with data. If the board wants to go in one direction, say, yeah, at least let us go test to see if that's going to work. And by test, that means do ODI, test their concept against the underserved metrics, and you can tell them, hey, look, your concept was pretty good. It's going to satisfy 2 of the top 15 unmet needs. But now that we know that what the other 13 unmet needs are, why don't we come up with a better solution to solve those as well? And we'll know we're going to win in the market. So I'd approach it more like that. Hopefully that helps. I appreciate your frustration there. I've been through that.
Yeah, excellent. This next one comes from Diju Wusu. I believe strongly in the needs first framework. However, Do you stir an organization to realign with the concept if they've already sunk huge investment into the product thinking real estate?
Uh, no. So you got to meet them where they're at, right? Um, the answer is still going to be the same, right? We're not going to say, hey, you got to change everything you're doing. You don't know yet, right? I mean, run the ODI project. It could be a product that's well underway. Maybe it's just about to be released. Maybe it's just been released. You've invested a lot of money in it, but there's always V2, right? And if you can discover what's going to make V2 a highly satisfactory product from a customer's lens, that would be very helpful, right? And by doing that, you could save it from failure. You know, a product might only be getting the first version of the product may only be getting the job done 3 or 4 or 5% better, in which case it's not going to be a mad rush for it. But if you come right behind it and say, hey, if we made this tweak and that tweak and added features to address these 5 unmet needs, that's going to move the needle and keep us in the game. There's no wrong time to do this, right? It's great if you do it up front and avoid uh, spending any time developing a product that's going to fail. But if you've already made the investment and decisions and you're behind it, you're all in, then take the time to do the work and make V2 the winning product concept.
Beautiful. This next question, it comes from Anonymous. Can the jobs to be done approach or process be used for product portfolio management and prioritizing innovation in the company? This is a fun one.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Product portfolios generally, what I like about applying ODI to a portfolio of products is that the portfolio often spans just one job. And you can get information that will inform how to improve every product in the portfolio with one study, right? Which is great. We were just talking to a group the other day that, um, well, I'll give another example, one that we worked on with Bear Crop Science a number of years back, where they wanted to do uh, projects on corn, wheat, soy, and cotton. And we said, well, instead of doing 4 different projects, why don't the job's the same, right? It's growers trying to grow a crop. It's just a different crop, right? And what we did is we studied the job at that level, grow crop level, and we had people quantify their important satisfaction levels for each of the different types of crops to see where they could improve their solutions. And of course, they could create a portfolio of products that could span across all crop types because the job is essentially the same. And a lot of the unmet needs were valid uh, for each of the 4 crops.
So, all right, probably have time for one more here. Um, this one comes from Daniel Schwartz. What's the range of time it takes for this concept to get some grip in a medium-sized company, from what you have seen?
It depends. It depends on who's who's backing it, who's pushing it. Um, the best way to get started though is to do some type of workshop, prove it out, try it on an internal business process maybe, but introduce the concept, the frameworks to a team where they can get some immediate results. So that's often how our clients begin, and then go from there. Once they get the process and they see that it's going to create more value for them than the traditional techniques, then they're in, right? They'll start investing in. And we see grassroots efforts. We work with a lot of large companies, so we see a lot of grassroots efforts. Um, and then we work with some companies where it's um, handed from the top down. The CEO says, we're going to apply this. Uh, and so they start applying it. But I love the ground up approach better. That's when it really starts taking grip. Uh, when product teams buy into it, they use the data to make the right decisions. And it was that like that slide that I showed back here. This one here, this is what it's all about: getting the data, teaching the teams, getting them to go in the right direction, the same direction. So every time you execute this with a product team, your company is more and more customer centric. Right? You're teaching the company to become more customer centric team by team. And you don't have to have everyone be an expert in ODI, right? You just need a few people expert in ODI or rely on us. And what you need to be expert in is using the data to make those downstream decisions so that you can make the right marketing and development R&D investment decisions once you have that data in hand. And that's what we teach companies.
Beautiful. All right. I think that marks the end of this session, Tony. Thank you again for the good work and the great presentation. Any last thoughts or comments for the group?
Again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. When I see people from all over the globe interested in what we have to say, it really fires me up. So I appreciate that. I hope to see you guys next month.
All right. Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Have a great holiday.